Hi brewers and welcome. In this video we'll be running through the process of one of our most frequently asked questions. How do I acidify the wort prior to fermentation? There are two ways we can approach this, the first being a titration and the second by using the brewing software to estimate our adjustments. To start with, I'll demonstrate the titration method. This is the easiest way to calculate how much acid we need to adjust the wort. The titration method. We start with a measured quantity of our fresh wort. In this case I've measured out 1 litre, which is easily scalable to my large batch. I then measure a small sample of the wort with a freshly calibrated digital pH meter and let that sit until it has a stable reading. With the meter showing a stable reading of 5.33, I can now start adding acid to lower the wort to or below 4.6. To do this, I'm using lactic acid and a cleaned and sanitized 1 ml syringe to add precise amounts. I'm starting with a small amount of 0.1 of a ml. I then add it to my wort and give it a gentle stir to ensure it's mixed appropriately. Once it's mixed, I retest the wort with my pH meter to see the results. Settling at a reading of 5.06, I can calculate a drop of 0.27, so I'm going to add another 0.17 of a ml to the wort, making it 0.27 of a ml per litre in total. I then give it another stir to mix it and remeasure the wort. The wort is now showing a reading of 4.52. With the titration done, it's time to scale up the measurements. Having 11.5 litres in my fermenter, I need to multiply the acid additions to reach my required dosage. This is quite simple as I started with a 1 litre sample. I need to multiply the acid addition of 0.27 of a ml by 11.5. This gives me a required dosage of 3.1 ml of acid required to adjust my full volume. I then use my syringe to measure the acid and add it straight to the fermenter. Put the lid back on and give it a good rousing to mix the acid with the wort so you can take another sample to measure our pre-pitch pH. The wort is showing the same pH as our titration of 4.52, which is right around where it should be, and with fermentation it should finish with a final pH around 4.3. If you've used a sanitary process, you can add the titration back to the fermenter or simply discard the wort. You can now pitch the yeast, knowing you're within the food safe ranges for our wort. Brewing software. The next process is a little more complex and should only be used as an estimate due to too many variables in play. For this, we'll be using the brewing software to make our adjustment. We need to start by measuring our wort sample with a freshly calibrated digital pH meter. Let it sit in the sample until you have a stable reading. With a stable reading of 5.42, let's measure how much acid we need. For this, I'm using the Brewfather app to calculate my adjustment. One thing we need to do is fill in our brew day numbers. The more information we have, the better it can predict the amount of acid required. Fill in the gravity readings and the fermenter volume. Once they've been added, scroll down to the brew day summary and click the Adjusted Recipe button. This will open an adjusted recipe based on your brew day numbers. Scroll down to the water section and click the Calc button to open the water chemistry section and scroll down to Mash pH. Here we can adjust the predicted pH to our actual pH reading. Watching the predicted number at the top, we increase the baking soda to raise the pH. As you can see, we now have a matching pH value of 5.42. Find the Acid Mash tab and click the slider to open the adjustment. Then adjust the acid type and concentration to the one you are using. In my case, I'm using 88% lactic acid. I then need to increase my amount of acid until the pH number at the top lowers to my target pH at or below 4.6. By increasing the acid amount to 2.3 ml, it has lowered my pH down to 4.6. This is where we need to be to have a food-safe wort. With a prediction of 2.3 ml of acid, we need to use that as a rough estimate at best, as it usually suggests more acid than required. So I usually like to add around 70 to 75% of the predicted dosage first, and recheck the wort to ensure I don't overdose it. Using a cleaned and sanitized 1 ml syringe to make accurate additions, I start by adding 1.5 ml of acid to the fermenter. I'll put the lid back on and give the fermenter a good rousing to mix the acid with the wort and let it sit for a minute or two before taking another sample to retest. Set the meter in the sample and leave it until the reading is stable. With the reading stable, the meter is showing a pH of 4.61. This is enough adjustment in my opinion, as the fermentation should drop the pH another 0.3 points for a predicted final pH around 4.3. Having used both processes for my beers, I've switched from using the software adjustment to titration for the ease and accuracy of my adjustments. Be sure to give both a try and see what works best for you and your brewing processes. If you have any questions about the video, or anything else in general, be sure to leave a comment or hit us up on our socials. Also, be sure to click the like button and subscribe to our channel for future videos. Thanks for watching and see you next time.